This is the Meeting of Minds podcast with me, Philippa Robinson. In this episode of the Meeting of Minds podcast, I'm in conversation with Jake. I first met Jake when he came to work at the same place I was working at just over 2 years ago. I'm not there anymore, but I'm pleased to say Jake and I are still friends. He is warm and open and funny, and I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. So, over to Jake. Jake, hi.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for being here today. It's really great to have you on here, and I know you're going to have lots of interesting and great things to say. No pressure though.
Lots of knowledge.
Absolutely. So, as you know, we're here to talk about 20s, being in your 20s, and you're right in the middle of yours. So,
I am.
Can you tell me how it's been so far?
So far, yeah. Well, I mean, like everything, it's been a humongous learning experience. I already feel like I've learned so much and come so far. And it's funny because I literally feel like I remember my 20th birthday and I really remember my 21st birthday. And it's funny how they literally feel like they were yesterday and how far I've come from. I graduated in my 20s. I graduated at 21 and I stayed living in Bristol. And I've made Bristol completely my own home outside of university. And come such a sort of long way in what I feel like has been a really, really short space of time.
So you went to university in Bristol?
I did.
I never knew that. I always wondered and never asked you, because obviously we used to work together, didn't we? You're still there and I'm not there anymore. And I did wonder how you came to Bristol, because obviously you're not from Bristol originally. You're from up north, not the other side of the Pennines from me. But so you went to university.
My mum's northern.
Yeah.
My mum's northern. I was brought up in London.
Okay. But no, you are, yes, because you do have a bit of a northern twang. That's from your mum then, is it?
I do. That's because my whole life I've been mimicking her. She gets really annoyed about. And I'll go from completely talking normally, and then my mum will ring me. I'll be like, hey, up, you all right?
Yeah, exactly, because you do it so well. I do it,
yeah. Forgot. No, that's because I've had years of practice, and especially because growing up, particularly in my young years, all of the years, particularly when we were little, we always used to go and see my nanny in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
So I've always claimed quite a bit of myself to be from Yorkshire because it's a very, very important place for me. And we spent a lot of years going up and spending time with my nanny. I think mainly because my mum and dad couldn't be bothered to plan a holiday, and it was easy to take because me and my sister would just run around my nanny's house like absolute crazy monkeys. But yeah, no. I always have that bit of a northern twang because I've spent my whole life mimicking my nan and my mum mainly to get on their nerves, which always did work.
Yeah,
very well. And then sometimes I slip back into a little bit of I'm Middlesex. I'm right on the outskirts of London. I'm from Twickenham.
Yeah.
So a little bit just on the border. So it's not really any particular accent. To be fair, a lot of people who were brought up in Twickenham are rather posh.
Yes.
And then I go right into Bristol because I've been here for such a long time as well. Been here since I was 18.
You have, and you do that really well. You've obviously got a really good ear for accents.
I'm really good at accents.
I can't do them to save my life, but you're doing you. Yeah.
No, I'm really. It sometimes landed me in a bit of trouble because when I was 23, for a year I worked in a call centre, and one of my appraisals with a manager, which we had one every month. To keep up with if we're basically doing what we're supposed to be doing, which I never was. And she would always bring up the fact that she was like, when you're on the phone to the person from Newcastle, you started talking about Newcastle. And I said, no, and I don't mean it to be rude. It's nothing like that. I'm like a parrot. I just start listening and I think it's my way of, someone explained to me once, is like, it's my way of like, connecting with someone or getting on their level is that I sometimes start talking in their accent, I think, to make them feel more comfortable and for me to feel more comfortable. I think it's a weird psychological thing.
To bring you together a little bit. I think I understand that because I think I do the same thing. I'm not very good at it. So all my accents sound really weird, but I think I gravitate a little bit to try and do that, whereas actually your accents are really good. But sorry, we digressed. So you came to Bristol University.
I did.
Stayed here after graduation.
Yeah. No, Bristol's always been quite a big part of my life because my mum lived in Bristol through the 80s and moved to London with my dad to bring my sister up and then me.
Yeah.
So I've always sort of known Bristol, and I knew when I was looking for universities that Bristol was really on my list because I just knew that I loved the city.
Yeah.
And it is an incredible city.
It is.
And there's been a couple of times that I've thought about leaving Bristol.
Yeah.
And something seems to always pull me back.
Yeah, because you have. I mean, since I've known you, I know you've talked about moving elsewhere. So I was interested when I found out that you'd bought a place, because actually
I know
you are now putting your roots down here.
I am, which when I was thinking about buying property, and I bought my flat because of the pandemic, because of now they've soared up because of the stamp duty, I think, being waived a little bit.
Yeah.
But when we were right in the middle of the first lockdown, and when I was on furlough, and obviously because I work in conveyancing, out of just sheer interest, I would just go on and look at, what properties were about, and I couldn't believe how many properties were so affordable, because obviously you yourself living in Bristol, the costs are quite high. It is quite an expensive place.
It is.
So in the first lockdown, I couldn't believe how many places were available, and were sort of available within a budget that I actually thought that I might be able to get to. So I decided, because there's nowhere else in the UK, there's a lot of places in the UK that I would totally consider living, but to buy an actual property, it would only be Bristol, because I know that if someone said to me, you have to stay in Bristol for the rest of your life, I wouldn't be that downhearted, I would say. So I thought I'd go for it, and it's paid off, and I'm very happy I did it when I did do it, because if I was looking for a property now, I don't think I could probably afford a garden shed. So
yeah. And that's happy. Only in a matter of months, isn't it? So
it's insane.
You really got in there at a good time,
making the best of a bad situation.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's all we can hope to do, if we possibly can, isn't it? And
absolutely.
So how does that feel now? You're 25, you've bought your flat, and you're here in Bristol, and how is that all coming together and feeling?
It's been, I think this has been one of the biggest, what I would call, learning curves of my 20s. I think it's the most adult I've ever felt. And it's made me feel like I don't feel 25 at the moment. I feel like I should be a lot older, because I've bought a property.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting as well, because speaking to a lot of my friends who are around the same age as me, or even like a little bit older, I've the reaction I've had for me saying I've bought a property has been shock and surprise, and thinking, oh my god, how have you done that? I can barely afford my rent. And I said to them, I don't actually know. I'm still quite shocked. I think I did go into it thinking it was going to fail, to be honest. I think there was this element of myself that I thought, oh, it's going to fall through, or I won't get the mortgage, or you know what I mean, or they'll do a credit check and they'll be like, oh no, you've just been splurging on stuff your whole your life on your credit card, you can't have a mortgage. And then I got my mortgage offer through, and then we were off, kind of thing. So yeah, it's been the scariest thing I've genuinely ever done, and I will say that it's starting to bring a lot of joy. But in the first forefront, I was very, very scared. I was a bit like, oh my god, does that mean something I've had to overcome? Does that mean I've now chained? That's how I was feeling. I felt like a little bit like I had been handcuffed to Bristol, which I think sounds worse than what I want it to sound, because I love Bristol with all my heart, but there is still so many places that I want to see. And I think one big lesson that I've taken from 2020 is that when we are allowed to travel, or when you're able to travel, you should absolutely go for it, because it's been definitely a year where a lot of people's travel plans, and just being able to visit another city within the UK, at the moment we're in tier 3, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Which definitely has made me feel very I can't think of the word. Not chained up, but do you know what I mean?
Penned in
A
a
little
little
bit like,
bit.
yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like a little bit claustrophobic because I feel
Yes.
like I cannot leave this space. I feel a bit imprisoned, if you
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I totally understand that because as we were talking off air before we started recording, I didn't actually buy anywhere until I was 35. For those reasons, I think there were other reasons going on for me. I moved around all over the place, but it is a big step.
Mm.
You've managed to do it, and I do wonder whether that was sort of the universe put you in conveyancing at that time to give you that opportunity, and
Yeah, it's yeah,
you saw that opportunity, you took it, you went for it, you didn't necessarily have your heart set on it working or not. You thought, well, let's give it a go and let's see how far down the line we get. And
yeah. It's funny that you
actually,
mentioned the
it went.
conveyancing thing because that's honestly, and it's I did sort of I didn't go for working conveyancing. I've never actually even thought about it. It was sort of I started at the law firm that we both worked in as a receptionist and more of an admin assistant, and as I got a little bit further on and I enjoyed my time within the firm, there was a job opportunity to work in conveyancing. I took it and I got it, and that's what I've been doing for the last sort of year and a half now. And I think that if I didn't get that job, and if I hadn't got, because I had no clue about conveyancing, I didn't even know it was a thing. To be honest with you,
Yep.
if I'm completely honest, I didn't. I
No.
knew there was a legal aspect of buying property, but I didn't know there was this. It is a massive element of buying a property. There is a big legal element. And I think if I hadn't worked in it, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have bought it because I would not know the process how I know it now.
Yeah, and you were in the middle and had people who could sort of explain it to you. You were in the right place. You had people who could explain the process to you as and somebody was doing it for you who you could say, well, what does this mean and what does that mean and how's this going to
Yeah,
work? So actually it does feel a little bit like you were in the right place at the right time to some extent.
I think so. I think so. I'm a big believer, I think quite similar to what we've both said to each other in the past, is that I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, me too.
And that I'm a big fan of screw ups and mistakes because there's there's always a reason that I've when I look back now at 25, when I look back over my years thus far, is that every mistake I made or every screw up or everything that I thought was a bad thing has always ended up being a good thing for another reason, if you know what I mean.
I absolutely know what you mean. And I think it's hard to see that at the time.
Always,
Yeah.
always.
But once you're a little bit away from it and can look back, there are positives to come out of it. I'm a great one for saying that instead of sort of saying something has been a failure, to rather, if you can, try and see it as a step towards the success. Because
Yeah,
actually, I mean, how many of us get things right first time and straight
it's not.
away?
Yeah,
And actually, I know that's easy for me to say because I suppose I'm not in the middle of having really got something really wrong. But, wouldn't life be boring if we just decided we were going to do something, we did it, and it goes perfectly? Well,
or it's all handed to you on a plate. If
exactly.
you don't work for it and know the graft that it takes. Something that I've sort of one of my big, I think, lessons so far in my 20s is that I don't believe in perfection. I don't think it exists. I think it's an idea that's formed by loads of different things, loads of different elements. And I think one thing I going forward into now, which will, because obviously being at 25, the next stage is my late 20s, is I've decided I'm going to stop striving for perfection because you're never going to get it. It doesn't exist. And it's something that I've spent so long. I think I had this idea of my life and me and, maybe partner and all this other stuff. And I wanted this perfect thing in my head. Doesn't exist. Let it go, because it's definitely made me feel a big weight off my shoulders when I realised that perfection actually is somewhat, I think, striving for perfection is somewhat, to me, unhealthy, because you're just going to end up very disappointed, feeling very angry with yourself and angry at life, and it's just gonna bring a lot of, I think, more pain than good.
Oh, do you know what? I so admire you that you have learned that already, because I think I got to 47 before I realised that. So, you've learnt that in half the time it took me to. So well done you. But I totally agree with you. And I think what I've learned as well is that perfection is this sort of ideal standard that we can hold ourselves up to. But where does that come from? Who is telling, it's not like there's some independently verified acceptable standard of perfection. There just isn't.
That isn't.
And
someone's perfect is different from another person's perfect.
Absolutely, because that's what is so fantastic about people, is that we're all individuals. We all have our own ideas of what we like, what we don't like, what is, our idea of, an ideal day. For me, my idea of an ideal day is going to be completely different to your idea of an ideal day. And actually, that's what makes the world go round. I know that's a bit of a naff saying, but actually the fact that we are all so different is what makes people so blooming fantastic and incredibly interesting to get to know. But yet we still do have this cruel talk that we do to ourselves sometimes about not being perfect, when, as you quite rightly say, it just doesn't exist. And it fills my heart with joy, really, that you are saying that to me, that you have learned that sort of lesson. I don't want that to sound patronizing, but you've learned that for yourself now, because you can carry that forward into your late 20s, into your 30s, because you've still got all the angst of you're doing your quarter life crisis, which we'll come on to in a minute. And then you'll have your late 20s, then you'll have your 30s. I mean, that's what life's like. You keep on getting older, but it's just an age. But we do all have phases, and I just think that's such a great thing to have learned and to be sharing today, because hopefully people who listen to this will take something from that. I wish I'd heard people saying that when I was a lot younger. So thank you.
No problem. And it's something that, I mean, I've spent so much of my life, I think, trying to people please. I'm a massive people pleaser, and it's an aspect of my personality. I get really angry at myself because I do it really naturally. I always want to people please, and I always want to, it's sometimes, I think, rooted in, I think what it's really rooted in is when I actually came out as gay. Because I spent my entire teen years, and a lot of my I didn't come out until I was 21. I've only been out as gay for 4 years. I came out when I was 21. So I was considered, I don't believe that there's a time limit on anything, especially with coming out. I think it's a process that, if you are a person that is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, wherever on that timeline that you go through the coming out phase, I mean, I hope there's a day when you don't have to come out, that it is just an acceptance thing, but it is still here, and it is something that people have to go through. And I spent my entire teen years and my university years really trying to bury this sort of fighting against it. I really, really, really tried to fight against it, and it basically rooted so much insecurity in me, because I wasn't like what I thought everyone else was like. I wasn't like all the other lads or boys, and I did prefer hanging out with girls and felt more comfortable around girls, and I did like effeminate things. I can be very feminine. We'll go with that. And it's still taken me a long time to like that aspect of myself, even through realizing that I'm gay and carrying on. I still tried to beat the feminine part of me out, because I didn't want to be an effeminate man. And now I feel like it's an element of me that's always going to be there, so I need to learn to love it like the rest of myself. And when I came out as gay, the people that I was so scared to tell was my parents, and particularly my mum, believe it or not. My dad's always, my dad grew up in Putney, through, like, you know, the 70s and the 60s and the 80s. So he always said he's seen all manner of life and he accepts all manner of life and all people, kind of thing. But my mum, like we discussed, grew up in Keighley, Riddleston in Yorkshire. It's a very, very small town, which is also a very Christian town, particularly through, she was born in the 50s.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, and I was so scared. I was absolutely terrified. And I'd come out slowly to all of my friends in Bristol. So everyone, all of my sort of, my group in Bristol all knew that I was gay. I came out to all of them. And then I remember speaking to a lad who I knew was gay and who was openly gay throughout the whole of university. We were all at a pub once, and I was talking to him about it, and I actually sought advice from him, and I said to him, I'm getting to the point now where I think I need to tell my parents that I'm gay. What was it like for you? And he said, and I've always known him as just like, he was, I won't say his name, but you know, he was just himself, and he was gay and he was himself. And I asked him, and I thought he was also really confident about it, and which, not saying he wasn't, but I asked him, what was it like coming out to your parents? And he says, my parents still don't know. And I said, really? And he says, yeah. He said, my parents still don't know. He was like, I'm just going to be who I know I am. But yeah, when I go back to being the other person that like they see. And that really like hit a nerve. It hit something in me, and I was like, I don't want to do that, because you're still compressing that part of yourself that doesn't need to be compressed.
Yeah.
And the next day I got a coach ticket, and I went home and spoke to my parents, and they were, you know, mum was a bit wobbly at first, but ultimately now we're closer than we ever were, and they completely accept it and they're very happy about it. Same with me. And I think that's what's brought on this whole learning thing of being like, you do it for yourself, don't do it for anyone else. Because if you keep on striving to do things for other people, you're just going to end up being so disappointed, and you're going to end up, like I said, with mass insecurities that don't need to be there. So I think do it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that your experience of speaking to that guy in the bar and him saying, actually, I'm not out to my parents, it didn't make you go, oh, okay, maybe I won't do it, man. It actually spurred you on the other way. It made you go, no, that is not what I want. And actually, I want to be out. I want it to be, I don't want it to be a secret. And I you know, I've just got to go and do this. And off you went the next day, which is really courageous, given that you didn't know how they were going to take it. And I think that is a way sometimes that life lessons come to us, that actually we see things that we don't want, that push us in the other, and go, actually, that helps us see what we do want. Because that's kind of what happened to you in that situation, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And actually, it was, you know, for you and your family, it was the right thing for you to do, because after the initial wobble, it's just great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's this fear of disappointment, and I think it's something that I'm sure happens with everyone in walks of their lives and ages. But one thing that I've felt, particularly with my group of friends, of us all being in our 20s together in Bristol, is something that we all seem to have, as this fear of disappointing people, be it parents, be it more like parental figures.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you want them to be proud of you, and you want to be doing what you think they think you should be doing. Okay. Which, to a degree, not that it's silly, but it's also that you're not always going to end up pleasing everyone. It's not possible. No. And most of the time, our parents are actually unbelievably, or parental figures in our lives are actually just really proud of where we are regardless. But it's something that I feel like, going through my 20s, I've always been like, oh, I really, really hope my parents are happy I've done this. I really hope my parents are happy that I've done that. But over the years, and speaking to my parents more openly about these things, is that one, they're proud of me regardless, but also that they've also got their own lives to live. So most of the time they're focusing on what they're doing, that they're sort of leaving me to do what I'm doing. And this whole time I thought that they've been looking over me in sort of like a spyglass, and really they're just thinking, oh, he's cracking on, we're doing our thing now. They're in their 60s and they're absolutely loving life.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think we can sometimes assume that people have expectations of us when in fact they don't. So like you say, actually your parents have every confidence that you're getting on with your own life, living your life, and actually just letting you get on with it, and they are very proud of you no matter what you're doing. And like you say, they're busy getting on with their life, but actually I'm sure you're not the first person to have thought that actually that you thought they did have expectations for you, because I think expectations is a big thing. I think it's a big thing in life, full stop, really. But I do think as you in your 20s, as you've left school and you've been to college or university or not, and then you're out sort of doing your own thing, I do still think there can be the feeling of a certain amount of pressure to be I don't know, sort of doing life right, if that sort of
or being perfect, or trying to strive for this perfection.
And
a lot of that pressure is inside you.
A lot of that pressure is inside, and actually it's not helpful.
No,
and
I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm completely like living like Gandhi and I've completely found peace and I'm absolutely fine. I'm absolutely not fine.
No.
I'm just trying to get to aiming just to be in a position where I don't live so much with that pressure. I think you're always going to have a bit of pressure, which is fine, which actually sometimes is a good thing.
Yeah.
But having sort of 80% of pressure on you all the time, which a lot of it is, like I said, put on yourself, is just not healthy, and you spend your time feeling anxious and upset and worried, and most of the time it's not all that much to worry about. The worry is within you.
Yes, absolutely. And it is, it's always a work in progress, our relationship with ourselves, but like you said earlier, do it for yourself rather than doing it for other people, because if you are making decisions and living your life for other people, then one day you're going to wake up like I did, and I was a lot older than you are now, and go, yeah, but what about me? Because actually, if you spend your entire life living it for other people, you're not pleasing yourself, you're not doing things that bring you joy, you're not feeding your soul, you're not being true to yourself. But also you are perhaps trying to please them when they don't expect that of you. They don't know you're trying to please them, and they won't show you that they are pleased with you. So not only are you not pleasing yourself, you're not getting any feedback from them either, and you are left in a bit of a what am I doing? What is life all about? Where am I going? What is it all for? Place.
And I think you just end up resenting them. I think that's the ultimate. That's the ending. Is that you're just going to end up really resenting them, because you think to yourself, I spent all these years trying to please you and I didn't have to. But you blame it on them, and then that just sort of ultimately starts tearing apart your relationships with them.
Yes. Exactly. So, I mean, we've segued away from you talking about when you came out to your parents, but it actually, you needed to come out for you. So it's a sort of similar thing that we're talking about. But that was only 4 years ago, actually. Yes, I know you were 21 and you're 25 now, and it seems like years ago. Well, it seems like a long time ago, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that long ago, is it? So you're sort of you're moving into a new phase of your life, really, post quarter quarter life, 25, aren't you? Of you've got your own place, which is fantastic. And if you want to move away from Bristol, you can rent it out.
Absolutely.
It's only going to given it's Bristol, it's unlikely to not go up in value. So actually, you
No.
know, it was a great thing to do. So conveyancing that job put you in the right place to enable you to do that. You know, you've
Yeah.
got your great group of friends, you know, you're you know, you're living your life the way you want to live it now.
Yeah.
And yes, okay, there are other things maybe that are not great. I mean, whoever is like, yeah, everything's tickety boo and I've got no problems, but
Is a liar.
yeah,
Is an absolute.
exactly. But you know, you've got quite a lot of those foundation sort of stones, for want of a better word, in place. And I don't mean buying the flat, because there'll be plenty of people who listen to this who are going, well, I'm never going to be in that position to buy a flat.
Yeah.
But for you have been able to, and that's put you in a great place. But more importantly, you're looking inside more about what it is that life is about for you. Because we were talking off air before we came before I started recording about your feelings about money at the moment. Would you mind just sort of sharing that with us?
Yeah. No, it's something that I think particularly in my early 20s. So when I left, obviously you kind of spend uni, you know, still being like, you know, end of the month or end of the term, you're eating, you know, pasta with a 99p jar of sauce for 2 dinners at a time and stuff like that. I remember that I used to, in my third year, I started having like what I called like, you know, really right at the end of term, really, really scrimping. I used to have a mug of peas and gravy. That was my dinner. That was, and then the thing is, when we got our student loans in, I know it was, that's what I used to eat when I was really, really poor. And then obviously when your student loan comes in, everyone gets a huge takeaway and buy loads of bottle of alcohol. Like, let's go out and let's have this massive splurge. And then the next couple of weeks later, you're back to having your peas and your gravy in your mug. But money's always been like a kind of thing that I think that I definitely found in my uni days and my early 20s as a form of having happiness, was having money. Because I thought that, you know, I would watch TV shows or I would go on social media and there was all these people that had these beautiful houses and these beautiful clothes and, you know, doing all these fun things. And I thought, well, all of that's because they've got money. So I said, that must be what, you know, that must be the key. That must be the answer. So then when I left uni and I moved into this big, you know, rundown house in Ashley Down with a group of friends who had gone to university with and were staying in Bristol like me. And we all had the sort of, you know, the jobs that you kind of had to just was able to get without any real experience. I mean, I worked at a supermarket all through university. So then I went on and I just worked in a department store. Like I said, another friend, again, it was like shops and call centers and that whole kind of thing. And we all basically kept on talking about how we wanted more money and kept on like, you know, looking at money as this really amazing thing. And in the last year, me coming into the job that I'm in now, I'm paid, you know, the best I've ever been paid. And again, when I bought this flat, I mean, previously I lived in a studio flat in Redland in Bristol, and my rent was over half my wage.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that was how much, you know, and now my mortgage payments are so much smaller. And I've been having a proper sort of wobble, like loads of people recently, building up from all of everything this year. And something that's really like turned a light on in my head is that I'm the most financially stable I've ever been. I've actually got quite a fair bit of money in the bank, and, you know, and I don't know if that's going to last long or if it's going to, you know, last forever. But it's something that I haven't been able to find any comfort in how I've been feeling recently.
Yeah.
And that's been a big lesson that I think I've learned, is that money does not buy happiness. I know that's like that is a bit of a saying, but I've never, now hearing that, it's so true.
Yeah.
That it's not, that doesn't solve your problems. I actually think some of the richest people in the world are some of the most saddest and the most depressed. And I think I've been also, because, you know, in 2 years I'm going to be 27, and there's that bit of a thing with, you know, a lot of famous people who, to unfortunately get to that age. So you have like Amy Winehouse and Kurt Cobain and all these people.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've realised that, all those people who had all those problems, they had money. They had probably more money than a lot of people will ever dream of.
Yes.
But they ultimately weren't happy. They were actually really, really unhappy. And it's something that I think I'm finding a fair bit of comfort in that it's not something that I'm going to strive for ever again. Finding happiness within money, because it's not there. Yeah, it can buy you the stuff, and it gives you that first like little bit of I've bought this lovely new thing, or but it's a temporary fix, and it doesn't fix the eternal problem.
No, and I think they say money doesn't buy you happiness, but it sure makes being miserable more comfortable, or something like that. But it's really interesting that you say, you left university and you would sit round the table in this house with all that you rented with all these people, and you just think that the answer to being happy was money. But now you find yourself with the most disposable income you've ever had, but actually it's not really making the difference that you thought it would. And what some people do in that situation is just go out and spend it and think the answer is to get more money and spend it more. But actually, if you can take that as a bit of okay, so this isn't what's making me happy, maybe I need to look at what are the things that are going to make me happy. And that is, sometimes that's a hard search. It's it's a soul searching, it's a looking inside, and it's not an easy answer. But if you can do that, then there are other joys to come, and hopefully you'll sail through being 27 and on to 30 and in a being happier, for want of a better word. But that's really interesting to hear your take on that, and I think that's a really valuable lesson. So thank you for sharing that.
Not a problem.
So we've talked quite a lot brilliantly about where you are and sort of what the last few years have been like. So do you I know this is a bit of a big question, but do you have hopes and dreams for your next 5 years and into your 30s maybe, or is that?
I've definitely got hopes and dreams and wants and all that, but what I'm currently trying to stop doing is look too far into the future. I recently sort of was thinking about the future and how it's sort of perceived. And I think sometimes I like to think I've sort of had this sort of idea in my head that your life is almost like a really long, dark corridor full of loads of stuff in the way. And instead of turning the light on and looking forward and looking at all the different things that are in front of you, it's better to keep the light off and have a torch that just shines on a couple of steps.
I love that.
Live your life like that. Because I keep on.
Yeah. Sorry, Jake. Carry on.
No. I was just thinking about it the other day, and I sort of came up with it in my head, and I was thinking that's the way that I think. For me personally, I prefer to live my life, because if I look too far into the future, I start getting really panicked and really worried. And it's something like, I'm particularly talking recently with some friends who are actually in their early 30s, between 30 to 34. And they were all telling me about how, like, all my life I thought I was gonna, and like none of them, they've got relationships, but none of them are married or have kids or anything. And they were talking about how, like, I really, really thought that I was going to have kids by now, or I thought I was going to have a house, and I'm not. I'm working, and at the weekends eating and drinking and all that stuff. And I was sort of thinking, like, I don't see anything wrong with that. And I think that's a pressure that I really want to get rid of. This idea of that you have to have these things that I feel like there's this pressure that you have to have things sorted, that you always have to be sorted, particularly when you get a little bit older. And I'm at a point now where I feel like I can't use the excuse anymore, like, oh, I'm young, you know, oh, I'm all right, you know, that kind of thing. Like, oh, you're young. You do get, I feel like now I'm reaching that point where you sort of, people are going to, there is this sort of like, you should be sorted. And that pressure is just completely unnecessary. And I don't see the point personally for me in looking really far into the future, because it might never happen. And it's better to maybe look at life 3 months. It's a step-by-step journey. Don't leap. It's kind of the same, I think, if you have a book and you read the first couple of chapters and then you skip to chapter 12.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other stuff in between. So I was thinking of it like your life's a long corridor, and you don't want to turn the light on and spoil all the things that are coming forward, but look at what you've got in front of you first and enjoy those things first, and you know, and then you'll move as you need to move.
Oh, I just think that's such a fabulous way of looking at it. I totally agree with you that looking too far ahead and worrying about what is to come is not very helpful, really. And you can spend a lot of time and energy worrying about what's to come that might never happen, and miss what is happening now. So you know, keep your torch and look around where you are now, and you know what is coming. It will come, because you know life moves forward, doesn't it? But worrying about it too much is not going to help you, really, and also is going to stop you enjoying the now. And I do think that's really important. I think that's I completely agree with you. I think that's great. And I think we're probably about sort of ready to wrap up now. Jake, you've been fabulous. I did
problem.
What I did, I don't know if you I did ask if you have a motto or a saying or something that you find useful or helpful that you have to share with the listeners. And if you don't, that's fine. But do you have one?
Yeah, I mean, something that I've really been picking up on recently is learn to embrace the bad and the sad, because that's what develops the good.
I love that. And that actually ties in a lot of what we've been talking about today, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's don't when you're in a bad place or you're in a sad place, don't fight it, because it's just going to get worse. Learn to embrace it. You need to have your bad times and you need to have your sad times, and you're always going to have them. They're always going to be there. But looking back, some of my really, really bad bits in life have made some really, really incredible bits. And I've learned to not regret the bad and the mistakes, and really just you need to start learning to love them and embrace them and accept them, because they bring the good bits as well.
They do.
So it's all valid. All those bits are valid.
Absolutely. And I think you said earlier on, everything happens for a reason. It might have been before we started recording, but you've definitely said that today.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. And that's a perfect place to leave it. Thank you so much for being on.
No, thank you. It's been lovely.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeting of Minds podcast. You can find this podcast in all the usual places. Please tell your friends, please subscribe, and if you have a moment, I'd be really grateful if you could rate and review, as it helps other people find us and helps me spread the messages of empowerment and positivity that I'm really passionate about. If you want to find out more about me, you can visit my website at www.safeandsupported.co.uk. Until next time, bye.